to our second type of macromolecule is called a lipid. This is also known as fat. So when we're talking about fats, I might say lipid or fat. They mean exactly the same thing. Now, a lipid is an organic compound made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms. Now notice this is the same as carbohydrates. So carbon, hydrogen, oxygen also make up lipids. I do have a couple pictures for you over here of what these look like. So we have saturated fatty acids above, we have unsaturated fatty acids below. Now a lipid is made of one glycerol and 3 fatty acids. So this is your monomer. This is your one puzzle piece. This is nonpolar, so there is no charge. They are hydrophobic, meaning that they're not attracted to water. And usually the liquids at room temperature are called oils. So this is your lipid right here. We have 2 types. We have saturated and unsaturated. Now the importance of lipids. Lipids provide energy, and usually they're given 1 gram of energy, or provides 39 kilojoules of energy. Now if you look at this and compare that to your carbohydrates, you'll notice that your carbohydrates only give 17 kilojoules of energy. So ask yourself, where do you get more energy? Do you get them from carbohydrates or do you get them from lipids? Now cells will actually use carbohydrates first when energy is needed, which is questionable. You probably are asking, why do they do that? Well, it's just the way that the body works. Lipids are the things that will actually store more energy than they'll actually be used. Cells will use carbohydrates first because lipids, really their main job is to store the energy. And there's a layer of tissue called adipose tissue. Now this is a layer of cells that insulate the body. Plants store lipids in their seeds to aid in germination. So layers of animals, basically the animal bodies will layer it in adipose tissue, and plants will store it in their seeds for germination to help them grow. Now proteins. Proteins are also large organic molecules, and they're made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Proteins have extra nitrogen in them. No other macromolecule has this if you want to look at your protein, if you want to look at lipids or carbohydrates. So proteins promote chemical reactions. Proteins help them, and as we've discussed already before, proteins are pretty helpful. As in the plasma membrane, they're helpful for transporting, things like that. They promote chemical reactions. They're actually also used for cell growth and damaged cell repair. So when you get injured, let's say you cut yourself, or let's say you fall down, you break something, proteins will help cell growth and damaged cell repair. They also defend against infection. All your white blood cells, are basically part of your immune system, and those are all made of proteins. So it's very important for infection. Now amino acids, these are the building blocks of proteins. This is your monomer. An amino acid is your monomer, the building blocks of all proteins. Now there's actually 20 different amino acids, and these are essential for your body to build all those proteins that are needed. Now there's essential amino acids that are acquired only from food. That's why they're called essential amino acids. You can't get them from any place else. And most of the rest of them are actually non-essential amino acids. They're made by the body. Now those essential amino acids are very important that you eat certain things, like beans actually do have amino acids. There's other things as well. But there's a lot of amino acids, those essential ones you can get only by eating food. The rest are created by the body. Now here are some examples of proteins. We have some enzymes, and we have a whole lesson in Chapter 5 all about enzymes. Now these are biological catalysts, and catalysts speed up the rate of chemical reactions. And we're going to talk about that more in the next lesson, but just remember that enzymes are biological catalysts. Collagen is an example of a protein. This is your structural protein in your hair. We have actin and myosin. These are contractile proteins in muscles. Antibodies are defensive proteins. Hemoglobin are transport proteins. They transport oxygen and carbon dioxide. Membrane proteins, we've discussed those in talking about the cell or plasma membrane. Those are the ones that transport materials across the cell. And ovalbumin. Now this is a storage protein found in egg whites, and they support the developing embryo. So those are the proteins that you'll find in egg whites. That is basically ovalbumin. And our last macromolecule we're going to talk about are nucleic acids. Nucleic acids are the building blocks of nucleic acids, I should say, are nucleotides. And if you remember anything from DNA or RNA, nucleotides are those building blocks of nucleic acids. They're made of a sugar, a base, and a phosphate group. Now, nucleotides are the monomer of nucleic acids. Several nucleotides are put together and they form a nucleic acid. A nucleic acid is a long chain of smaller molecules called nucleotides. So your nucleotides are the monomers that make up your polymer of nucleic acid. So in this case, I have a little broken down picture for you. We have a phosphate group, we have our sugar here, and then we have our base. It's a nitrogenous base. It has nitrogen in it as well. And some other things might go along in here as well. But because this is a organic molecule, we definitely will see carbon. We'll have some nitrogen. We have oxygen. Of course, we have phosphorus as well because we have a phosphate group. And hydrogen. So we have a whole bunch of different elements that make up our nucleotides. Now you probably are familiar with DNA and maybe even RNA. Basically, all those nucleic acids form DNA and RNA. So let's start talking about DNA because that's actually the most famous one. So DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, consists of two strands of nucleotides that spiral around each other. Your chromosomes are made of DNA, and those chromosomes store hereditary information. So each nucleus in your body has DNA in it. And this is important because it holds all of your hereditary information. Now, RNA, this one might be a little unfamiliar. RNA is called ribonucleic acid. And this consists of only a single strand of nucleotides. RNA is also housed in your nucleus, but this plays a role in manufacturing proteins. RNA does not store hereditary information. RNA actually manufactures proteins. And we have all lessons coming up where we're going to talk about are manufacturing these proteins from RNA. So, DNA holds hereditary information, RNA manufactures proteins, and they can also act as enzymes.